The stranded diplomat, the ship was falling apart around her. Una Park held tight to her seat as the emergency lights flashed red. Alarms screamed through the corridors of the UES Starbound Hope. She could hear metal tearing somewhere behind her, and the whole ship shook like a dying animal. She was not a soldier. She was not a pilot. She was just a junior diplomatic attaché, a woman who spent her days reading reports and filling out forms. Her job was to smile at alien ambassadors and make sure the coffee was ready for meetings. She had never trained for this. She had never prepared for death. The ship hit the atmosphere of Valora Prime like a rock thrown into water. Fire wrapped around the windows. Una closed her eyes and thought of her mother back on Earth, of the small apartment in Bizen where she had grown up, of the cherry blossoms that bloomed every spring outside her childhood. Then everything went black. She woke up in pain. Her left leg was broken. She knew this because she could see the bone pushing against her skin, and because the pain was so strong that she almost passed out again just from looking at it. The ship had crashed into a forest of strange purple trees. Most of the hull had been torn open. Bodies lay scattered in the wreckage, her crewmates who had not been as lucky as her. Una did not cry. There was no time for crying. She had to survive. She dragged herself to the emergency supply cabinet and found a medical kit. With shaking hands, she injected painkillers into her thigh. The relief was immediate but incomplete. She then wrapped her broken leg as best as she could, using metal rods from the wreckage as a splint. It was ugly work. It hurt more than anything she had ever experienced. But when she was done, she could at least move without screaming. The emergency beacon was destroyed. The communication array was nothing but melted metal. Her tablet still worked, and she checked the mission files with growing dread. Valora Prime, hostile grade 7, home to the Valorans. She had read about them during her training. They were apex predators, the most dangerous species in this sector of space. They stood over 2 meters tall, with bodies like great cats but walking upright like humans. Their fur was black as midnight, their eyes silver like polished mirrors. Their claws could cut through ship armor. Their teeth could crush bone. Humanity had tried to make contact 3 times before. All 3 delegations had been killed within hours of landing. No one knew why. The Valorans did not explain. They simply attacked and killed anyone who came to their world. And now Una was alone on that world, with a broken leg and no way to call for help. She checked her oxygen supply. 72 hours. 3 days of air, assuming she did not exert herself too much. 3 days to figure out how to survive on a planet full of monsters. The first day passed slowly. Una stayed inside what remained of the ship, eating emergency rations and trying not to think about what was waiting outside. She heard sounds in the forest, strange calls and distant roars that made her blood freeze. She did not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined silver eyes watching her from the darkness. On the second night, they came. She heard them first. Heavy footsteps circling the wreckage. Low growls that vibrated through the broken hull. Una pressed herself into a corner and held her breath. Through a crack in the metal, she could see shadows moving in the moonlight. They were huge. They were everywhere. This was it. This was how she would die. She closed her eyes and waited for the claws to find her. But instead of an attack, she heard something else. A high-pitched sound, like a puppy whimpering. It was coming from somewhere nearby, somewhere in the debris field outside the ship. Una's eyes opened. That was not the sound of a hunter. That was the sound of something small and scared and hurt. She did not think. Her body moved before her mind could stop it. She crawled out of her hiding spot, dragging her broken leg behind her, following the sound of that pitiful whimpering. Every movement sent fire through her bones. Every breath was a struggle. But she kept going, because something in that sound had touched her heart. She found the cub trapped under a fallen bean dot. It was small, barely the size of a large dog. Its fur was the same midnight black as the adults, but its eyes were not silver yet. They were pale blue, wide with fear and pain. Its front paw was caught under the heavy metal, and no matter how much it struggled, it could not get free. Yuna looked at the cub. The cub looked at her. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Yuna reached out and began to push at the beam. Her arms were weak. Her legs screamed in protest. But she pushed and pushed until finally the beam shifted just enough for the cub to pull its paw free. The little creature stumbled backward, staring at her with those strange blue eyes. It was shaking. It was scared. But it was free. Heavy footsteps behind her. Yuna turned and found herself face to face with a nightmare. The mother Valoran was enormous, easily 2.5 meters tall. Her silver eyes burned in the darkness like twin moons. Her claws were extended, each one as long as Yuna's hand. Her lips pulled back to reveal teeth that could bite through steel. Yuna's heart stopped. This was death. This was the end. But she did not run. She could not run even if she wanted to. So instead, she did something that came from pure instinct, from some ancient part of her human brain that remembered what it meant to face a predator. She gently pushed the trembling cub toward its mother. Then she bowed her head and exposed her throat. It was a gesture of submission, a sign that she was not a threat, a silent prayer that this creature would understand. The forest went quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Yuna kept her head down. She could feel the hot breath of the Valoran on her skin. She could hear the slow, heavy beating of its massive heart. She waited for the killing blow. It never came. When she finally looked up, the mother Valoran was still watching her. But her claws had retracted. Her lips had covered her teeth. And in her silver eyes, there was something that almost looked like curiosity. The mother picked up her cub with surprising gentleness and turned away. At the edge of the clearing, she paused and looked back at Yuna one more time. Then she disappeared into the darkness. Yuna sat alone in the wreckage, her heart pounding, her leg throbbing, tears streaming down her face. She was alive. She did not understand why, but she was alive. The mother's trust, the diplomatic mission, stayed on Valora Prime for 30 days. Commander Daho Kim established a small camp at the edge of the Valoran territory, and slowly, carefully, the two species began to learn about each other. Yuna Park became the bridge between worlds. She spent her days moving between the human camp and the Valoran village. Her broken leg healed quickly with proper medical treatment, though she kept the Valoran bone cast as a memory. The doctors said the aliens had done a remarkable job. The cast had kept the bone straight and clean, preventing infection in a way that showed real medical knowledge. The Valorans were not primitive. They were simply different. Rova, the matriarch of the Silver Eye clan, became Yuna's closest friend among the aliens. The great predator had taken a special interest in the small human woman, and every evening they would sit together at the edge of the village. Watching the twin moons rise over the purple forest. Communication was difficult at first. Valoran throats were not made for human sounds, and human throats could not produce the deep rumbles and growls of Valoran speech. But they found ways, gestures, simple words, pictures drawn in the dirt. And slowly, a language began to form between them. One night, Rova told Yuna the truth about the previous human delegations. "We did not want to kill," Rova said, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Killing brings no joy. Killing is only for food, for protection. But your people, they did not understand. What did we do wrong?" Yuna asked. Rova was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was heavy with old pain. The first ones came with fire sticks. Weapons, you call them. They pointed these weapons at our hunters from the moment they landed. They moved in groups, always together, never alone. They made loud sounds, sharp sounds, sounds that hurt our ears. She touched her scarred shoulder, and they looked at us, directly, into our eyes, without looking away. Una nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand. In Valoran culture, she said, direct eye contact is a challenge. Yes, a challenge for dominance, for territory, for blood. Rova's claws extended briefly, then retracted. When your first people looked into the eyes of our pack leaders and did not look away, they were saying, I am stronger than you. I will take what is yours. This is what our instincts told us. But they did not mean it that way. Humans look at each other when we talk. It is a sign of respect for us. We know this now. We did not know it then. Rova sighed, a deep rumbling sound that shook the ground. Our warriors attacked. They killed the challengers. It was instinct. It was wrong, but it was instinct. The second delegation had been worse, Rova explained. They came with more weapons, more soldiers, more aggressive postures. They had learned nothing from the first failure. They still pointed weapons. They still made eye contact. They still moved in tight groups that looked like hunting formations. The third delegation tried a different approach. They came without weapons, but they came with gifts. Shiny objects, bright colors, loud music. They thought these things would impress the Valorans. Instead, the gifts frightened the cubs. The music hurt sensitive Valoran ears. And when the humans tried to force their presence on reluctant clan members, reaching out to grab Valoran arms and hands, the warriors interpreted this as an attack. More death, more failure, more confirmation that humans were dangerous creatures who did not respect boundaries. And then you came, Rova said, looking at Una with something like wonder in her silver eyes. Alone, broken, soft. I was not trying to be diplomatic, Una admitted. I was just trying to survive. Yes, and that is why it worked. Rova placed a massive paw on Una's shoulder. You did not come to take. You did not come to challenge. You came with nothing, asked for nothing, demanded nothing. You simply existed. She made a sound that Una had learned was Valoran laughter. And then you saved my Kira, my smallest cub, my Ard. Una remembered that night. The whimpering in the darkness. The tiny paw trapped under the beam. The terror in those pale blue eyes. I could not leave her there, Una said. I heard her crying and I had to help. This is what made us understand, Rova said. No predator saves the young of another predator. No rival risks injury to free a trapped cub. Only pack does this. Only family. The matriarch stood and looked up at the stars. When I found you with Kira, I was ready to kill. My claws were out. My blood was hot. But then I saw what you had done. I saw you push my cub toward me. I saw you bow your head. I saw you offer your throat. She looked down at Una. You gave me the choice of whether to kill you. You trusted me to be merciful. No human had ever trusted us before. They always fought. They always ran. They always saw us as monsters. I was too tired to run, Una said with a small smile. And I knew I could not fight you. So trust was the only option I had left. Sometimes, Rova replied. The only option is the right option. The cubs had been the key to everything that came after. Cubs were curious by nature. They did not share the fears and prejudices of adults. When Una started sitting outside the wreckage every morning, singing softly to herself, the cubs were the first to investigate. They sniffed her. They poked her. They pulled her hair and tugged at her clothes. And Una let them. She did not flinch or pull away. She let them explore her at their own pace. showing them that she was not a threat. Within a week, the cubs were visiting her every day. They would bring her things they found in the forest. Interesting rocks, pretty flowers, small dead animals that they probably thought she would want to eat. Yuna accepted all these gifts with gratitude, even the dead animals. The mothers watched from the trees. They saw their children happy. They saw this strange creature treating their cubs with gentleness and patience. And slowly, one by one, they began to approach as well. Rova was the last to come forward. As the matriarch, she had to be careful. She had to be sure. The safety of the entire clan depended on her judgment. But when she finally did approach, she brought Kira with her. The same cub that Yuna had saved. The cub that had started everything. Kira ran to Yuna and climbed into her lap, purring like a small engine. And Rova sat down beside them, close enough to touch. "You saved my daughter," Rova said in her broken universal standard. "Now you are daughter too. Back, family, forever." That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment a stranded diplomat became something more. Not just a survivor. Not just a visitor. A mother to cubs who would remember her kindness for the rest of their lives. Yuna looked at the stars above Velora Prime and thought about how strange life could be. She had come here expecting to die. Instead, she had found a family. "Thank you," she said to Rova. "Thank you for giving me a chance." Rova made her laughing sound again. "Thank you," the matriarch replied, "for being worth the chance." The unexpected guest commander Daeho Kim had been in the Navy for 20 years. He had fought pirates in the Outer Rim. He had chased smugglers through asteroid fields. He had survived 2 first-contact situations that had turned violent. He thought he had seen everything the universe could throw at a man. He was wrong. The distress signal arrived 18 days after the UE Starward Hope disappeared. Everyone had assumed the ship was destroyed. Everyone had assumed the crew was dead. Velora Prime had that reputation. Nothing human survived there for long, but the signal was strange. It was not coming from a human beacon. It was coming from a Veloran frequency, broadcasting in broken universal standard. "Human Yuna, safe, come slow. No weapons." Daeho played the message 3 times. His bridge crew listened in silence. No one knew what to say. "It could be a trap," said his first officer, a young man named Tai Wu Shin. "The Velorans might be using her voice to lure us in." "Maybe," Daeho replied. But that message was not made by a human pretending to be free. That message was made by a Veloran trying to speak our language. He made a decision. They would go to Velora Prime. They would be careful. But they would not leave one of their own behind without at least trying. The Use Resolute entered orbit around the planet 3 days later. Daeho ordered a reconnaissance drone to be sent down first. Standard protocol. Safe procedure. No unnecessary risks. The drone's camera showed the crash site. The wreckage of the Starward Hope was scattered across a wide clearing in the purple forest. Bodies had been buried in neat rows, marked with stones. Someone had taken the time to honor the dead. And in the center of the clearing, sitting on a flat rock in the morning sun, was Lieutenant Yuna Park. She was alive. More than alive. She was surrounded by Veloran cubs. Daeho leaned forward in his chair, unable to believe what he was seeing. The cubs were climbing over her, like she was a piece of playground equipment. One was sitting in her lap. Another was hanging from her shoulder. A third was chewing on the hem of her torn uniform. And Yuna was laughing. "Sir," whispered his communications officer, a woman named Hana Choi. "Is she playing with them?" Daeho did not answer. He could not find the words. The adult Velorans were visible at the edge of the clearing. Massive shapes watching from the shadows of the purple trees. They were not attacking. They were not even approaching. They were just watching, like parents watching their children play with a new friend. Yuna looked up at the sky, directly at where the drone was hovering. She waved Dot, then she taught one of the cubs patty-cake. Daeho sent a shuttle down the next morning. He led the team himself, against the advice of his officers. He brought no weapons. The message had been clear, and he was not going to risk the life of his stranded crewmate by ignoring instructions. The shuttle landed at the edge of the clearing. Daeho stepped out first, his hands raised and empty. His team followed behind him, all of them nervous, all of them ready to die. Yuna walked toward them slowly. Her left leg was wrapped in some kind of strange material, white and hard like a cast, but clearly not human-made. She was thin. She was tired. But she was smiling. "Commander Kim," she said. "Thank you for coming." Daeho stared at her. "Lieutenant Park, how are you alive?" Yuna turned and gestured at the purple forest. The Valorans emerged from the trees. 7 adults, moving in a slow circle around the clearing. They were even more terrifying up close. Their silver eyes fixed on the humans with an intensity that made Daeho's skin crawl. "They saved me," Yuna said simply. They did not have to, but they did. One of the cubs ran out from behind a tree and jumped onto Yuna's back. She caught it easily, like a mother catching a playful child. The cub made a happy rumbling sound and nuzzled against her neck. "This is Kira," Yuna said, scratching behind the cub's ear. "She was the first one I helped. Her mother is Rova, the one with the scar on her shoulder. Rova is the leader of this clan." Daeho looked at the scarred Valoran. She was the largest of the group, and her silver eyes seemed older, wiser, more knowing than the others. She met his gaze without blinking. "How?" Daeho asked. "How did you do this?" 3 delegations died here. Armed soldiers. Trained diplomats. They lasted hours. You have been here for weeks. Yuna set Kira down and watched the cub run back to play with its siblings. "They did not die because the Valorans are evil," she said quietly. "They died because no one understood the rules." "What rules?" "Valoran rules. Their culture. Their instincts." Yuna turned to face him. The previous delegations came with weapons. They came in large groups, making noise, moving fast, looking everyone in the eye. To a Valoran, that is not diplomacy. That is a challenge. That is an invasion. She touched her broken leg. "I came alone, injured, weak. I could not fight them even if I wanted to. And when Rova found me with her cub, I did not try to fight. I did not try to run. I submitted. I showed her that I was not a threat. And she just accepted you?" Yuna smiled. "Not immediately. For the first few days, they watched me. They circled the crash site every night. I think they were trying to understand what I was. But I did not hide from them. I came out every morning and sat in the sun. I sang to myself. I ignored them." "You ignored apex predators?" "Yes, because that is what you do when you are not prey and not a rival. You simply exist. You become part of the landscape." Yuna looked back at the Valorans. Eventually, the cubs got curious. They started coming closer. I let them smell me, touch me, explore me. And when their mothers saw that I was gentle with them, everything changed. Hannah Choi stepped forward, her face full of wonder. "They trust you. They actually trust you." "The cubs trusted me first," Yuna said. "Cubs are not afraid of new things. They are only curious. And once the cubs accepted me, the adults had to make a choice. Kill the creature their children had befriended, or accept that maybe, just maybe, I was not an enemy." Rova walked forward. The human team tensed, but Yuna raised a hand to stop them from panicking. The Great Valoran stopped in front of Dao. She was so tall that he had to crane his neck to meet her eyes. Her breath was hot on his face. Her claws could kill him before he could even blink. She spoke. Her voice was deep and rough, struggling with words that were not designed for her throat. "Human Yuna," Rova said slowly. "Good, kind, cubs love. We protect." She placed one massive paw on Daeho's shoulder. The weight was immense, but the touch was surprisingly gentle. "You take her," Rova continued. "You bring back. She is Pack now. Pack visits family." Daeho swallowed hard. We can do that. We can bring her back to visit." Rova's lips pulled back. Her teeth were terrifying, but Yuna had told him what this expression meant. The Valoran was smiling. "Good," Rova said. "Good human. Maybe all humans not bad. Maybe we learn more." She turned and walked back to her clan. The cubs ran to follow her, though several of them looked back at Yuna with obvious sadness. Daeho turned to his stranded crewmate. "Lieutenant Park, what the hell just happened?" Yuna laughed. It was a tired laugh, but a happy one. "I think," she said, "we just made first contact. Real first contact. And all it took was playing patty cake with some cubs." The morning report, the full diplomatic team, arrived 32 days after the crash. A dozen specialists flew down from the U's Resolute, including scientists, linguists, and cultural experts. They set up a proper research station near the Valoran village, with all the equipment needed to study and communicate with an alien species. Dr. Jiwoo Kang was the team's xenolinguist. She had spent 15 years learning how to communicate with alien races. She had written books about first contact protocols. She was considered one of the best in her field. Nothing in her experience had prepared her for what she saw when she stepped off the shuttle. Yuna Park emerged from a Valoran dwelling, a structure made of woven branches and purple leaves that looked like a giant nest. 3 cubs followed behind her, bouncing along like excited puppies. One of them kept trying to climb her leg while she walked. Dr. Kang's mouth fell open. "They have adopted her," she whispered. "That is not supposed to be possible. The Valorans are apex predators. They are territorial hunters. They do not adopt other species. They do not form bonds outside their own kind." Commander Daeho Kim stood beside her. And yet, here we are. The smallest cub ran ahead and leaped onto Yuna's shoulder. It was Kira, the one she had saved that first night. The cub was bigger now, about the size of a medium dog. But she still acted like a baby around Yuna. She nuzzled against Yuna's neck and began to make a series of low, rumbling sounds directly into Yuna's ear. Dr. Kang grabbed her recording equipment. "What is that? What is she doing?" Yuna smiled and waited until Kira finished. Then she scratched behind the cub's ear and set her down gently. "That was the morning report," Yuna said, walking toward the diplomatic team. "The cubs give it to me every sunrise." "The morning report?" Dr. Kang was already taking notes. "What does that mean?" Yuna led them to a sitting area near the camp. The other cubs followed, keeping a curious distance from the new humans, but staying close to Yuna. The adults watched from the edge of the clearing, silver eyes tracking every movement. "It took me 2 weeks to understand what they were doing," Yuna explained. "At first, I thought they were just making noise. Cubs are noisy. They growl and rumble and purr all the time. But then I noticed a pattern." She pointed at Kira, who had curled up at her feet. "Every morning, just as the sun came up, the cubs would come to wherever I was sleeping. They would press their muzzles against my ear and make those rumbling sounds. Always in the same order. Always at the same time." "What were they saying?" Dr. Kang asked. "They were reporting to me." Yuna's smile grew wider. "They were telling me what they dreamed about, what they smelled during the night, what sounds they heard while I was sleeping. They were giving me information, like soldiers reporting to their commanding officer. The diplomatic team exchanged confused looks. Why would they do that? Commander Kim asked. Yun looked at the cubs with obvious affection. Because that is what Valoran children do with the people they trust most. In their culture, the morning report is sacred. Cubs only give it to 3 types of people. She held up one finger. Their mothers. A second finger. Their pack leader. A third finger. Their bond guardian. Dr. Kang stopped writing. Her face had gone pale. Bond guardian, she repeated slowly. I have read about this in the old reports. The concept existed in some of the data we recovered, but we never understood what it meant. A bond guardian is someone who has earned the complete trust of a cub, Yuna explained. Not just physical trust, but emotional trust. The cub believes that this person will protect not just their body, but their mind, their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. She reached down and stroked Kira's fur. The cub purred loudly. When a cub gives you the morning report, they are saying that you are responsible for their soul. It is the highest honor their species can give. The camp was silent. Everyone was staring at Yuna with new understanding. Dr. Kang spoke first. You are not just a visitor to them. You are not just a friend. You are family, Yuna finished. Real family. The kind that cannot be broken by distance or time. Heavy footsteps announced the arrival of Rova. The matriarch emerged from the trees and walked toward the gathering. The diplomatic team tensed, but Yuna raised a hand to calm them. Rova stopped behind Yuna and placed one massive paw on her shoulder. The gesture was protective, possessive, and gentle all at once. This one speaks for the Silver Eye clan now, Rova announced. Her universal standard had improved significantly over the past weeks. Where she walk, we walk. Where she makes peace, we make peace. Commander Kim stepped forward carefully. You are saying that Lieutenant Park represents your people? Rova's silver eyes fixed on him. She is bond guardian to 7 cubs. 7 futures. 7 dreams. When our children trust someone with their morning report, that person becomes part of our clan. Their word is our word. Their promise is our promise. She bared her fangs in a Valoran smile. Your small soft one has become a mother to our future. We will not forget this. We will never forget this. Dr. Kang was crying. She did not seem to notice the tears running down her face. Do you understand what this means? She asked Commander Kim. We have been trying to make peace with the Valorans for decades. We sent soldiers and diplomats and scientists. We brought weapons and gifts and technology. And none of it worked. She pointed at Yuna. She succeeded by being kind to children. She succeeded by earning trust instead of demanding it. She succeeded by becoming a mother. Yuna stood up and faced the diplomatic team. The Valorans are not monsters, she said firmly. They are parents. They are protectors. They love their children more than anything else in the universe. And when they saw that I loved their children too, they decided that maybe humans were not so different after all. Kira climbed back onto Yuna's shoulder and nuzzled against her neck. 2 other cubs ran over and pressed against her legs. The adults watched from the tree line, their silver eyes no longer cold and predatory, but warm and accepting. Tomorrow morning, Yuna said, the cubs will wake me up with their morning report. They will tell me their dreams and their fears and their hopes. And I will listen, because that is what a good mother does. She looked at Rova with obvious love and respect. And then I will tell their real mother everything they said, because she deserves to know that her children are happy. That is what family does. That is what pack does. Rova made her laughing sound. See? The matriarch said to the human delegation. She understands. She has always understood. That is why we chose her. She looked up at the stars. And now, maybe we choose all of you too. We will see. We will learn. We will watch how you treat our children." Her silver eyes returned to Commander Kim. "Do not disappoint us." The human way the Valoran Accords were signed 6 months after Yuna Park's rescue. It was the first successful treaty between humanity and a hostile-grade species in galactic history. News of the agreement spread across human space like wildfire. Politicians gave speeches. Scientists wrote papers. Military commanders revised their first contact protocols. Everyone wanted to understand how it had happened. How a single injured woman had accomplished what 3 armed delegations could not. Yuna told the story so many times that she eventually wrote a book about it. The book became required reading at every diplomatic academy in human space. It was translated into 47 languages. It changed the way humanity approached alien species forever. But Yuna did not care about fame. She did not care about awards or recognition or her place in history books. She cared about one thing, and one thing only: going home, not to Earth, not to Bizon, where her mother still lived in that small apartment with the cherry blossoms outside. She would visit there too, of course. But her real home was somewhere else now. Every year, without fail, Yuna Park returned to Valora Prime. The first visit was strange. She arrived on a diplomatic shuttle, dressed in her formal uniform, surrounded by security personnel. The Valorans met her at the edge of their territory with ceremony and respect. Rova made a speech. The other clan leaders gathered to honor the human who had bridged 2 worlds. But all of that disappeared the moment Kira saw her. The young Valoran, now nearly as tall as Yuna herself, broke from the formal gathering and ran straight at her bond guardian. She knocked Yuna to the ground with an enthusiastic tackle and began licking her face with a rough purple tongue. The security personnel reached for weapons that were not there. They had been told not to bring weapons. They had been told the Valorans were not dangerous. But instinct was hard to overcome. Yuna laughed and hugged Kira tight, not caring about the dirt or the slobber or the formal occasion being ruined. "I missed you too," she said into soft black fur. "I missed you so much." The other cubs joined the pile. 7 young Valorans, all of them much bigger now, all of them desperate to reconnect with the human who had helped raise them. They growled and purred and rumbled, their voices mixing together in a chorus of joy. The security team did not know what to do. They had never seen anything like this, but the Valoran adults knew exactly what was happening. This was a family reunion. This was Pat coming home. Rova approached slowly, waiting for the cubs to finish their greeting. When Yuna finally stood up, covered in dirt and fur, the matriarch pulled her into a gentle embrace. "Welcome home, daughter," Rova said. "We have missed your voice." The years passed. Yuna aged. Her hair turned gray, then white. Her steps became slower. Her bones became weaker. But she never stopped visiting Valora Prime, even when the doctors told her to rest. Even when her mother begged her to stay on Earth. Even when her own body told her that the long space journey was too much, she went anyway. Every year. Without fail. Because every year, no matter how old she became, the morning report was waiting for her. Kira was a pack leader now, with cubs of her own. She was enormous and powerful, a warrior queen who commanded respect across the entire continent. Other clans told stories about her. Enemy predators fled at the mention of her name, but every morning when Yuna visited, Kira would curl up beside her sleeping mat, press her muzzle against Yuna's graying hair, and give her morning report. She would tell Yuna about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future, just like she had done when she was a tiny cub with pale blue eyes. The other 6 cubs had grown up too. They were hunters, mothers, leaders, and warriors. They had traveled far from the Silver Eye clan, building their own packs, raising their own families. But when word spread that human Yuna was visiting, They all came home. Every single one of them. They brought their children. They brought their grandchildren. They brought gifts and stories and memories. And every morning, no matter how many Valorans crowded around Yuna's sleeping mat, each one would take their turn to give the morning report. Yuna listened to all of them. She always listened. That was what a good mother did. In her final years, Yuna wrote a second book. This one was not about diplomacy or first contact or the mistakes humanity had made. This one was about something simpler. Humans are persistent predators, she wrote. We do not have claws or fangs or speed. We survive by enduring, by adapting, by making ourselves useful to whatever pack we find ourselves in. But more than that, humans are nurturers. We adopt everything. Dogs, cats, lizards, spiders, even robots. Give us something small and helpless, and our first instinct is not to eat it or fear it. Our first instinct is to protect it. This is our greatest strength. This is what makes us human. Not our technology, not our weapons, not our intelligence, but our capacity to love creatures that are not like us. She dedicated the book to Kira and her siblings, to Rova, who had taken a chance on a strange soft creature, to all the Valorans who had taught her that family was not about blood or species, but about trust. Yuna died on a spring morning, 73 years after her crash on Valora Prime. She was 91 years old. She passed peacefully in her sleep, in the small apartment in Bizen where she had grown up. Surrounded by cherry blossoms. The news reached Valora Prime. 3 days later, the howling started at sunset. Every Valoran on the planet raised their voice to the sky. A sound of grief that shook the purple trees and echoed off distant mountains. They howled for the human who had loved them, for the mother who had protected their dreams, for the small soft creature who had proven that kindness was stronger than fear. Rova, now ancient and gray herself, led the mourning. She howled until her throat was raw and her silver eyes were wet with tears that Valorans were not supposed to shed. She was Pack, the matriarch said to her gathered clan. She was family. She was ours. She looked up at the stars. And somewhere out there, she is still watching over us. Still listening to our morning reports. Still loving us, even though she is gone. Kira's grandchildren asked their grandmother about the human in the old stories. The tiny soft creature who had saved a trapped cub. The strange visitor who had taught their ancestors patty-cake. Kira told them everything. She told them about the crash and the rescue. About the patience and the kindness. About the morning reports that had continued for more than 70 years. She was not strong, Kira said. She was not fast. She was not powerful. But she had something more important than all of those things. What? The cubs asked. Kira smiled, baring her teeth in the human way that her bond guardian had taught her. She had love. And love, little ones, is the most powerful force in the universe. The cubs did not fully understand. They were too young. But they remembered the story, and when they grew up, they told it to their own children. And so the legend of human Yuna spread across Valora Prime and beyond. A story about a woman who had changed two worlds by doing something very simple. She had heard a crying child in the darkness, and she had chosen to help. That was the human way. That was always the human way. And the universe was better for it.